Welcome back to CryptosRUs. I am George. So you may be wondering how Bitcoin can one day reach levels of 100,000, 200,000, 300, 400, 500,000, or even $1 million someday. Well, in order for that to happen, an enormous amount of money needs to flow in. An absolutely avalanche of money needs to flow into Bitcoin in order to drive Bitcoin up to possibly $1 million in the future. Now, one thing that can help Bitcoin draw an enormous amount of money is a Bitcoin ETF, a Bitcoin-based exchange-traded fund that is backed by Bitcoin. Now, Von Eyck just filed another application for Bitcoin ETF to the SEC for approval. Now, this is not the first time we have heard of Von Eyck do so in 2018, 2019, and they were just shut down along with other applicants. But this time around, John Von Eyck believes they have a real shot because things are different in 2021. In this video, I want to show you an interview between John Von Eyck and a host on CNBC talking about why they're filing again and why John Von Eyck thinks that this time around may be different. So let's get started. Let's take a look at this interview conducted by CNBC with John Von Eyck, and let's hear his thoughts on why a Bitcoin ETF is more likely to be approved in 2021 than previous years.
Constantly pester you about this, but you're kind of the man in this particular space. You have filed for yet another Bitcoin ETF after being turned down several times. We've got a new year. We've got Bitcoin at a historic high, so the timing is perfect. Kudos to you. I know you can't talk about the specifics of the filing, but we're going to get a new SEC chairman some way down the road. We have an acting chairman now, but are the prospects for a Bitcoin ETF any better in 2021 than they were in 2017, 18, or 19?
Real quick, in case you aren't aware, the last chairman, Jay Clayton from the SEC, have stepped down. For whatever reason, he decided to step down right before the end of 2020. So that's what they're talking about. There is an acting chairman, but soon there will be a brand new chairman, and we have no idea who that is. That chairman could be more pro or more anti-crypto. At this point, we just don't know.
Well, we weren't trying to time our filing. We are just believers that this is something that investors should own, and so we'll keep at it. There are a couple of rays of hope. Not that I'm predicting approval or anything like that, because nothing has really changed. But one of the rays of hope is that the SEC last month gave some guidance on how broker-dealers can custody Bitcoin in a specialized manner. But nonetheless, I look at that as a glass half full announcement from the SEC, its very own regulatory agency. Secondly, you've seen regulators in Canada last year and in Europe last year approve retail Bitcoin products. I think that's really important because I do think the regulators have similar concerns about investor safety. And so I think if others have become comfortable, then why can't they? And then, look, like it or not, Bitcoin's going to keep being in the headlines, I think, in 2021. Probably the biggest news earlier in the year will be when Coinbase goes public. They're the 35 million client crypto exchange that's operating here in the U.S. And so you can't really avoid it. And there's so much exciting things happening outside the regulated space. The thing I like to point out,
I just want to stop real quick because this slide is perfect. And also, John talks about Coinbase. Coinbase IPO will be absolutely huge. It's one that you can't ignore, right? The biggest exchange in the United States, one of the biggest changes in the entire world. So not only is that happening in 2021, and I anticipate other exchanges will follow, maybe even in 2021, because it's perfect time to, but take a look at everything else on this screen, right? Square, PayPal, we know Square has been in for a couple of years now, but PayPal, absolutely enormous company that have joined in on the fund, is now offering not only Bitcoin trading, but also custody service for Bitcoin because they're holding everyone's Bitcoin in their wallets, right? And also you have huge institutional buying, such as MassMutual, a 160-year-old company, MicroStrategy, you guys know and heard of before, right? And others that are just jumping head on, right? And also, he's going to make a point about you can now make interest with your Bitcoin. And he's talking about DeFi. But my point is, and John's point is, there's just so much coming. So how can the SEC ignore all this going forward?
Is that you can earn interest on your Bitcoin holdings. Most people don't know that. That's sort of evolved over the last year or so. And so that what's happening in the crypto space is moving really fast.
Yeah. As I recall, I just want to stick on this for 1 minute, Jan, and guys, feel free to jump in. The concerns the SEC had in the past were basically twofold. One is a lot of the trading in Bitcoin takes place in overseas exchanges that they were suspicious about. They couldn't control. They had no regulatory control over that. That was one big concern. The second was the general fraud concern around custodial issues. Those seems to be the two big things, if I'm correct. Jan, is there some reason to believe that those issues are now more better defined or of less concern to the SEC? I'm trying to figure out, how do you get them to say yes? Wasn't those two issues very prevalent, and have they been addressed?
Exactly. And I do think that's why the guidance on broker-dealer custody last month is a ray of sunshine. Custody is absolutely a concern. You have firms now, brand name firms like Fidelity, offering custody of digital assets, of Bitcoin and Ethereum and other digital assets. So there's been a lot of movement on the custody front. So that's number one.
Yeah, real quick, Fidelity Investments, they're one of the biggest investment firms out there on earth and one of the biggest asset managers on earth. And they are heavily involved with Bitcoin, and they do offer Bitcoin custody service in addition to all these other services they provide. So if you're under an impression that only exchanges like Coinbase or Gemini offer custody service, you are mistaken, because Fidelity Investments also offers it.
On the market manipulation front, what people are doing and what we're doing is constructing indices that get price inputs from exchanges that have some kind of regulatory nexus. So there are 5 or so exchanges, crypto exchanges here in the U.S. that somehow have reporting through to the SEC. There are different exchanges in Europe. We have a retail product in Europe that was approved, and they're looking at different price feeds. But I think if you can get the regulators comfortable with the underlying price feeds, it's better.
So that's interesting. So he's talking about like creating a new CMC, right, with just regulated exchanges. I'm just thinking about, I don't know if that's actually necessary, right? As Bitcoin gets bigger and bigger, volatility dies down. And you got to look at something like gold ETF. Gold is traded worldwide. So why is that not a concern about manipulation overseas, right? I think that's more or less just an excuse. But I think that could be a smart move, right? If you have like a price index or indices from many different exchanges that are heavily regulated already, then you can make the argument that this prevents manipulation from smaller or unknown exchanges, stuff like that, right? So I guess that's a good step in the right direction. But honestly, as Bitcoin matures, as it gets bigger and bigger, this kind of solves itself, right? But, it's something. It's worth a try. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned I believe a Bitcoin ETF would draw an enormous amount of money. And the reason why I think that is this. ETFs are absolutely huge. We already have about $5 to $6 trillion in ETFs altogether. And Bank of America predicts that within the next 10 years, that number will go up to $50 trillion. Imagine that. And imagine the trillions that could be coming into Bitcoin if there was a Bitcoin ETF. I know some people do not like this. They don't like derivatives or paper options of Bitcoin. But keep in mind, this fund, this Bitcoin ETF, is going to be backed by Bitcoin. They will be physically storing and holding Bitcoin in order to offer this ETF. So investors, institutional investors, anyone that wants a piece of Bitcoin can simply buy this ETF and get exposure to it. Indirect exposure, but still exposure to Bitcoin. So what do you guys think? Do you think a Bitcoin ETF will be approved in 2021, or is it still too early? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Hit the like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Stay tuned for my future videos. And while you're waiting, check out these 2 other videos.